Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to our first afternoon session. We pressed the red button, so it's hopefully recording. The topic of my presentation is how to do migrations with ease. We just had a wonderful, wonderful presentation about how to write migrations. And as great as it is, it seems a little bit very high entry barrier. So before I can learn this migration, it's going to take a long time, and maybe by the time Drupal will be out of business altogether. So today I'm going to talk about the way how to make things easier. And one of the big goals is to increase Drupal adoption. And hopefully the conversation would lead to having the module that allows content managers work with migrations in a more efficient way and wider Drupal adoption. I'm a web developer and open source evangelist. Today I'm going to talk about what content tools are available for Drupal 8. I'm going to concentrate on comparing what is same and what's different in the Feeds module, which is one of like top 10 modules, I'd say, and Migrate module, which is now in core, which is a huge change and gives a lot of new directions for development. And then I would like to present new module that we're working on and invite everyone to use it, try it, contribute it, evaluate it, give us the feedback. And the hope is that at MidCamp we will be able to present actually working module and first migrations done with Feed Migrate. We're using dev tools, things will break. Be aware. So before I dive into migrations, I know that everyone has been working with the websites, but I like to put things in context. Websites don't exist forever, and they change organization that they support. And that is, again, this is our end goal, our end users. We don't want to forget about it when we're very busy coding this excellent, wonderful migration, except that nobody can use it except for us, and we've done that. What we're moving around, a couple of definitions. We're moving structured data from files from other websites, and we have different goals. Sometimes when we bring in something from the old site is a one-time thing. Some things we want to pull in on the regular basis, like news, changes, profiles, stuff like this. And we want to be able to have easy ways to monitor what's going on. And of course, now, so what tools do we have to reach our goals? I'm going to concentrate on three main things that we have right now and what we would like to have. All these three things I'm going to be demoing, and when I'm demoing, we keep in mind different scenarios. Sometimes we start with a data source. We have a website, it has structured data, we know what people are going to be bringing in. So this is one scenario. We have data, reformat, and then put it into destination container that we build based on what we already have. This works great, like when we have an old site and we're moving it to the new site. Sometimes we work in reverse. We have existing website where we want to aggregate different news or different information or new products or whatever we do. This is when we have preset destination container, and we can tell people, format your data, this is how you need to format, and then we will bring it in with one click. This works well for imports and ongoing aggregator stuff. So if we're ready, we're going to start looking at all these tools. I'm going to do this demos reasonably quickly without much details because they have been described and demoed in many places many times, but it sets the context for the conversation. So this is scenario when we have existing website. This is our website. We have director of different doctors in different units with different roles. We're hosting our site on Pantheon. Pantheon, thank you very much for ongoing support, and it's been great always. And we know our login credentials, so I'm gonna simply run, where did I put it? Here, I guess. So I'm gonna read the manual, because things are gonna be exactly the way it says in the manual. I'm gonna log into my existing database, check that I have correct password and port, 23 to 76. And say all the right words, and hopefully things will work as expected. We'll see in a minute.
Live demo.
Sorry?
Live demo.
It is live demo. This is, we have to prove the point. We have to eat our own dog food. If we can't run the demo, then what is this worth? So while Drupal is thinking, we have time to, talk, walk, have coffee, have discussions, and talk about what is great about this upgrade. Because in the past, when we were doing 6 to 7, we had to set up all the content types. We had to create data export, data import. This upgrade button saves me 3 operations, and if we convert it to dollars, it's going to be quite a large amount. As we said, reading manual is very important, and of course things don't connect, so we're gonna give it another try. Pantheon database password, maybe I didn't put the right password, let's double check, 23276. But if it doesn't work, 23276, then we will use our imagination and blame it on the network and move on to the site where we already did run this migration. So while migration is happening, what is happening in the back is that Drupal is setting your migration and keeps reporting whatever it is doing on the running screen if it works, and if it doesn't work, then it writes it in the log, and it is installing your modules, and then it starts configuring that migration that we heard about in the previous presentation. It's setting all the YAML files, it's setting all the connections, and then it starts upgrading menu items, image styles, taxonomies, everything has been upgraded behind the scenes. And when you're done, you have all your content moved very nicely from this Drupal 7 directory into this Drupal 8 installation. Everything has been preserved except for some special things that we can talk about at a different time. Taxonomies are set, fields are set. The only challenge is that if I make changes in my original site, I don't have a way to bring them in again. That is a one-time thing. Okay? So this is not a really ideal tool for me when I'm working through ongoing changes, stuff. So I'm looking, so this is one-time thing, and then you have to be very particular about different setups. So my next line of defense is configuring import with feeds, which is similar to what we're doing 6 to 7. How many people are familiar with feeds? Okay, so we don't need to dive into the detailed discussion. Yes?
Quick question. When you go Drupal 7, Drupal 8, what do you have to do with your new Drupal 8 version before you move to, you have to put in the content types?
No, that is exactly what you don't need to do. So what you need to have modules that you're going to be using.
Okay. You don't need to put in the content types?
No.
Okay.
Because this is the power of this migrate and core that already have, in 6 and 7, there was feeds module and there was migrate module. These were 2 full stacks of everything to move things around. And on average, sites that has more site building and content people, they would use feeds, and people who use more developers would do migrate. That's how it works. Because in Drupal 8, migrate is in core, it makes the case for using feeds as more of as a UI and not building all this huge engine and parsing and processors that were sitting in the feeds in Drupal 7. And that's what we're gonna talk about. So for the feeds part, is there somebody who does not know how feeds work? So the important thing about feeds, I'm going to leave more time for discussion and skip through things that everyone knows. The important part about feeds is you first configure feed type. You have UI to put in all this information, and then you can do mapping, and then you can do tempering. This is how you configure migration. So if we're now talking migrate language, we're setting migration where data source is null. You cannot do it with migrate, like you normally don't do it with migrate module. Okay? So in migrate module, you know what's your data source, you build migration, and then you have the destination. In feeds, it goes the other direction. We built the container, we predefine data structure, and then we say, now I can start importing all kind of news. Like, for example, this news I'm going to import from this file. If I want to say, let's say these are news from NYU, right? Then I'm going to be, this is going to be something that, let's say I'm doing news aggregation from different university. I will say, okay, these are news from Stanford, right? I can upload another file or provide different HTTP, and they all come in the same place. I don't need a developer. Things happen real quickly, and it is a very efficient module. And so our end users, and again, I'm representing end users, and then the next, there's an end user, there's content managers, and I'm a site builder. So in this food chain, developers are the next ones who's like, this is what I need from you developers so we can serve our end users, and Drupal will be as popular as WordPress. This is, there's this chase that keeps going on. So the migrate module also gives you some UI options. There's more and more options coming in, but we're not really designed to serve this population of site builders and content editors. So this is an example of how you can run drush behind the scene, bring in your configuration, then you can do execute. However, it doesn't work for end users. And this is why we came with this idea that feeds and migrate can work together, and we're going to take the best of both worlds, and hopefully it will work for everyone, and everyone will live happily ever after. So this is like nice stories, almost Alice in Wonderland, and this is what the things that we're trying to bring in. We already talked about how they go the opposite direction, and thank you very much to people on Slack, if you can hear me, probably not, and for everyone who contributed their time to early version. So I did this presentation like 4 times now, and every presentation brings in a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So at DrupalCon a year ago, Mike Decker coded first demo, so I was able to show it to Lucas and to Yuri Van Koppen. They got together and said this is a good development path. James Dixon joined us, and now we have this feeds channel, which is happening right now, very conveniently scheduled, where we have a weekly meeting approximately the same time, where people can ask questions about feeds, talk to whatever is happening, and there's something happening right now. And I don't know if Mike is around, but hopefully he is. So at MidCamp we did PowerPoint release, and then there are people from Martin from Tableau also joined the team. And today I'm gonna hopefully demo this new project. Let's welcome this new baby. Project is on Drupal.org. The most recent code is though on GitHub. We're going back and forth. There is Slack channel. There is we even have like this all the agile project management tools here. So with this said, I am going to hopefully define new migration. So first I enabled module Feeds Migrate and Feeds Migrate UI. So I'm going into my normal migrations tab. I defined migration group for whatever, and this is how I'm adding migration. Let's say I already have news defined, or let's look at the people. I can't really execute migration from here. We will have to make a lot of changes to this UI because some of these things belong actually to migrate, but they will not work with this configuration because migrations are not executed in this part. But you can edit this migration. And for those who use migration on the daily basis, this is the part, this is UI that generates your YAML files. So I can define here basic settings, and this is big new tab that did not exist before. And here I can say I want to map body, and the source will be, say, in my CSV or whatever I'm using, or XML, it will be bio tab. Things that we need a lot of work on would be setting process plugins that are not there yet. And because they're not there yet, I can't do actual import today. But I hope that with all the enthusiasm and contributions that I've seen, and hopefully maybe there will be a bug for sprint tomorrow, maybe things will get moving quicker. And once I defined my migration, this entity doesn't really have a full name yet. I can come here and I can say I would like to import, I already imported directors and surgeons. I can edit it. I can say, you know what, I want to replace existing content instead of editing. These are things that are done on different basis for each feed importer, because these decisions that are made by content people, not by developers. And then I can say, okay, I've got the new source. Hopefully I will find it where it's supposed to be, XML, and I'm gonna save and import. And it tells me that import failed, and I already know that. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this presentation, inviting everyone, is contribute, because we need more people to make this connection. So this is kind of, in the presentation you can take home and see at the screens that are supposed to say how it actually should work. There's a couple of items that are clearly defined as either work in progress or things that we do want on the UI, but they're not there. And yes, it is compatible with current migration. So you have migration set up on your system, it will show up today in the UI, and you can create new importer from the old migration. The only problem is, like usually in the old migration, you would have source predefined, and we don't have right now a mechanism. Do we want to override it? Do we want to replace it? Do we want just not show migrations that have hard-coded source? These are all things to do, to brainstorm, to be an architect, and to do all these great things. So this is one of the things that are like our prime target. And then this is another wish list item in the similar way, like if you have data source that you already know, that already shows your data structure, and you want to build up all the mapping in the similar way to migration, it would be great if it could be done eventually. When and how, we don't know yet. Plugin stampers work in progress. It would be great to have one screen where you can go through all the plugins and check them out instead of going them one by one in a field. And we hope that eventually we might have it, the processors done in the way similar to the way Webform does it. When you have this beautiful fly-out Ajax form and just like everything is on the same screen, very cool. So these are things that are very specific to feeds, but are not, I don't know, are they defined in Migrate? Like, how often do you want to run migrations? Do you usually define it? Or, so this is why, like, these are things that you can make different decisions on different content units. Like, for example, we want to pull data from Yahoo every day, and we want to pull from Drupal news once a week because we know they're not updated. We care about some other things. And then, of course, we want to be able to very carefully roll back, delete, or stop migrations. So this is what we're doing. If there are developers who would like to participate, we cordially invite them. If there are companies that are interested in being first users, saying, oh, this will work better for us, this is where we can do things, this is what is this presentation about, to bring people together and to make things happen. And I can spend more time in the details, but I would rather be like in the question-answer mode than in just demo mode. Questions? Anyone?
So in the selectors, where you could select the options, is that just pulling whatever is available for that current site? So if you created a new process plugin or something, would it show up as an option?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
This is very similar to the feeds. When you are adding a feed, let me real quickly add the feed, because this is all about the process, and this whole thing is about the details. So if we are adding, I have 15 sites open, this one. So this is the feed, right? So if we're adding feed structures, feed type, we can add different tempers. Are you asking more about tempers or more about something else?
Maybe the mapping.
So both.
Mapping to the things that are provided by the Migrate system, right?
Mapping happens from data source to content type, to the field in the content type. One of the big challenges is how do we import paragraph and how we do migrating field collections, because there is no field collection automatic upgrade path, and this is a huge problem. So all the field collections now has to be migrated one way or another. Anyone using field collections in Drupal 8? Anyone using paragraphs in Drupal 8? So more or less, path is from field collection to paragraphs. Paragraphs, as I learned, have slightly different structure than field collections. They have more connections to parent node, and that makes my import, just plain import, a little bit more complicated, because you can import paragraph, but they also need to be correctly identified in the parent node, and it's not happening right now. So these are big challenges that we're facing, and we don't have answers today. So to answer your question, in the feeds we have source, and then we have destination. This is very similar to migrate. But say we want, let's say we're getting time time that node was created from Drupal 7 in not, so Drupal 8 is ISO time. Drupal 7 is not. So there has to be a converter that will put letter T in the middle so Drupal 8 can correctly pick up the dates. This is where either you have to write migrate plugin, which we had to do a year ago, and it took a lot of time and a lot of money from our user, which we don't want to do. Or we could potentially have here a plugin that would say convert something to something. And here it is. So this is contrary to ISO code, which is not what we need today. It will convert strings to Unix timestamp. Right? So here you can write unlimited number of plugins. So if you have very custom data, you can say, okay, I store all this structure in this element, or whether it's XML or JSON, and this is my very unique processor. This is where you will plug in through the UI. So that gives great opportunities both for developers to do what they need to do in code within Migrate, and for end user to say, this is what I want, this is how I'm processing. Does it answer the question?
I think so.
So you can see that here we have very limited amount of processors available for feeds now, because coding every next processor takes time, and there's not that much time in every day, and there's not that many people who know how to do that. In Migrate, we already have it. So if we can have this structure, so right now we're putting it in one of migrations group. This we don't need. This we don't need. It's migrate. So here we are putting it into migrations, feed migrations. It would be nice if we had direct, like, drop down to come in here. But here, when we're editing this, so this is slightly different interface. We have option to add process plugins on every, it gives more room. We hope eventually to compress it into more like web form type thing where you have Ajax fly out and it's like, okay, we are configuring everything on the same page so there's less clicks. But for now, we need to have at least this thing working. And so this is where your plugins will come in. And we have fearless leaders that will tell us how to do that. And that's not me. And Lucas, I'm looking at you. So we hope that you will, we can have, like, if there is enough developers who are interested in doing it, we could probably have another workshop organized. We did it last time remotely about a year ago. Like, it was after Nashville.
It was in June.
It was in June. So we did a workshop where Lucas showed whoever was available at the time how to write these plugins, and that wasn't plugins, it was something else. But that gave a start to developers who needed some training or to save the time, and we'll be happy to sponsor this workshop if there's enough interest.
So Lucas Heading here. I'm one of the maintainers in core for Migrate. There's a couple of us around here this weekend. I also support a lot of the contrib modules that are in that ecosphere. We would really like to see this happen this Feeds Day. We're overly busy, and we're not UX people, we're not UI people. There's a reason why we've been doing drush for so long, because we like to code. So we really want to see the community pull together and build a really good user experience for importing data. That's my plea.
Irina,
And
can you
we're
summarize that for the
willing to
recording?
make the changes
Yes.
in contrib, and if we can, convince our alter egos in core, if we need to make those changes to support things like this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, because we already have this been happening last year. I remember then, so maintainer of feeds, Yuri Van Koppen, and James Dixon and Martin from Tableau, This is a running conversation on the Feeds channel. This is where conversations are happening. Everyone is welcome to join and log in. It's on the main Drupal and it's on the Feeds channel. I remember that last year there was something not working correctly and we needed some change in the migrate code. So Lucas will know better than I what has been changed, but it happened and we didn't have to wait for 3 years. It just happened like this. And I think this is one of the great things that I want to thank Lucas and all the migrate people who are supporting and making this happen. Because from the UI perspective, we have very, very, very clear understanding of what we want to see. And we can keep putting up these screens, these ones. Anytime you're not sure how to code and where to place it, email me 24/7. I'll be happy to tell you that this search does not exist. This exists just in a Photoshop. That was said, it would be really great if I can do search for my 17 plugins. I have 17 fields in this content type. They never fit on the same page. And in one content type, I have 22 fields because that's what I need to have there. And every time I need to do a temper and I miss it by one, I have to redo it again. The search would be great, but it's not there yet. So we're looking at people who write to code, who like drush, who like command line, to join us, and then everyone will be happy. Yes.
You mentioned, it sounds like there's a few different pieces that are kind of like you can use some of them. You mentioned like you could write migrations, and then this could be a way to just schedule them or change the way that the source works on the fly. It sounds like some of this is evolving, but is there like what is the primary use case for, like, are you intending to use all of them, or is it intended to just like pick pieces that maybe you would use the UI to build the migration script, but you wouldn't use the UI to run it all the time? Like, is there a singular like main use case for this, or is it just different pieces that could be?
So the original driver was to not reproduce all the code for XML and JSON that we already have in core. CSV is not in core, so feeds that are working with CSV is a very important piece for people who are working with importing Excel files. This is a huge audience. But right now, feeds do not work with XML or JSON. And so people who are doing aggregation of content, they have to work around it. There are ways to do it, and that's okay. So we're looking at feeds model and say, hey, we need more. So there is feeds extensible parser, which at this point is basically reproducing things that are already sitting in core. So that was original intent, to reuse what's in there. The use cases for migrate versus feeds there's like huge variety. So it's not like it's all designed for ongoing imports, or it's only designed for one-time thing. I think the advantage of having this UI, it has all the flexibility to build slightly different UIs without investing ton of development time every time. There is an interesting module that was recently developed by Atom Group called source import. I didn't test it thoroughly yet, but that is another piece that also allows you to build migrations via UI somewhat. But that was kind of more limited to CSV and is not covering all the cases. Did it answer your question? Do you want to see some examples?
I think it makes sense. It's yeah, it sounds like the focus is on flexibility and the UI pieces. So
yeah, we would like to. I strongly believe that if we can get this first, alpha release, then everyone will have an opportunity to take it and actually use it. Then lots of companies, large companies, will say, "Oh, okay, great. That's exactly what we needed. We need to tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there." So this is like pioneers and avant-garde developers. Please join. Let's go out there, Wild West.
So
if a developer wants to jump in and work on an issue, do you have some issues ready to be worked on?
Yes. This is the best thing I could have heard. Dear developers, let me introduce you to our very project management type board of issues that you can work on. However, if you want to go to more familiar route, you can go here, and we have a reasonably long list of issues. The goal is to have them more or less well defined, because if you, it's very difficult to chew them all together. So if I will find where we have all issues, then I'm happy to talk about them one by one if you have questions. So like this is a very simple request that will eliminate need to do 2 clicks. Right now I need to go to migrations, and I need to add migration group and then list migrations. If we can have this feed imported migration group preset in the module and have this URL pointing there, that would be great. It's a reasonably small task for a developer, and it can be done in limited amount of time without full understanding of every migrate API. Some other issues require much more detailed conversation. If you have questions, again, feel free to email me. I don't have the answers, but I can connect you to the person in this room who knows the answer, a person on Slack channel who knows the answer, or kind of make sure that you get your answers. And the goal is to release Feeds Migrate MVP. There will be both on DrupalCon. So this is the schedule for. So this is kind of a schedule for next couple of months. Anyone going to DrupalCon this year? So James Dixon will be there, and they're scheduled both. And I would like to invite everyone to come visit us at Stanford. We're going to have Stanford Drupal Camp this year in May. It would be great to see you there. And then there are going to be some stuff happening in Seattle. But yeah, these are the issues that have been identified and described, and it's all yours. But I can talk about different use cases or whatever might be of interest to people in this room. Yes?
Question. Is it generic to migration to Drupal 8, or is it to 8.5 or whatever?
Well, it should work for, the idea is it should work for any 8 and higher, and we will make sure that in 9 it also works. Because some people are at this point are not migrating to 8, waiting for 9, so they will go 7 to 9. So yeah, the plan is to work with all Drupal 8 and higher versions. That's the goal.
Would you recommend to wait until 9?
It's a different presentation. I don't know. It partially depends whether this module will be ready or not, because for us, migration to, right now, we can't run migrations to Drupal 8 because we don't have enough tools to move content efficiently. And so for me, this module was part of Drupal 8 adoption story. This was my blocker to move like half of the sites that we maintain. Like I can't move, we're still building new sites in 7 because there are, like, we can't import efficiently paragraphs into Drupal 8. And so we're saying, okay, we're going to build in 7 and then wait until 9. Unless we have this module ready before we need to launch the site, and then we can do it. So it's a challenging question. Okay? Any more questions? All right, well, thank you very much for coming.
Good.